Hi, my name is Brenda Titus and welcome to my video series, My Year Recovering from Retinal Detachment. This is the 31st video in my series, so if you haven't seen these videos before, I definitely recommend that you go back to the beginning and see my adventure from there. I've covered a variety of topics from retinal detachment, vitrectomy, face down recovery, cataract surgery, complications. And that's actually why I'm still here beyond a year dealing with updates, because I've had complications. And so today I actually wanted to share a little bit about my most recent doctor's appointments. So right about the 1 year point, I did go to see my retinal specialist, and he says the usual, well, the retina is detached, it's still recovering, it's jagged. So he and I both know that it's still very much recovering, and I'm very aware of it on a day-to-day basis because it impacts my vision. And so I said to him, well, what am I supposed to do? What are the what's the next step here? I think obviously he knows that after a year and a half of struggling with my vision challenges and how much it's impacted my life, I'm always asking about that. And so he and I went back and forth over some exercises with my eye. And I've always said since my second retinal detachment on this eye that I've had double vision. I have actually double vision as well as a bit of a warp in my vision. And so he decided that it was time, that it had been a year, and there's not a huge expectation around much more really changing with my retina. And so he decided to send me to what he called a pediatric ophthalmologist. And pediatric ophthalmologist, one of the things that they specialize in is strabismus, which is when the eyes are, back in the day we would say cross-eyed, but now it's actually more, we talk about some sort of misalignment with the eye placement. And I've kind of known that my eye, I can tell, and he and I have talked about that before, that possibly when the scleral buckle was added to my eye after the retinal detachment, that he said that it's possible that my eye alignment is just a tad bit off. So I said, great, thank you for sending me off to, try something else, get a different perspective on my situation. So after about a week, I did get the referral for this new doctor, the pediatric ophthalmologist, and thankfully they were able to see me very quickly. And so really between the initial appointment that I had with my retinal specialist, where he decided that I should see another specialist, to actually seeing the specialist, I think it was about 3 weeks. And that was amazing because on my first call, they said that they wouldn't be able to see me until October and November. And in my office, I'm always scheduled way out in advance too. So I had to understand and respect that that could be the case. But they said that they could see me sooner and quicker. And I was incredibly thankful. Now, I am going to add that on my Thoughts from the Hypnosis Office video series, I went through a whole kind of process about what it was like for me to get to see a new doctor, a new practitioner. And so I refer you over to there. I shared quite a bit about the excitement, the scare, the fear, the anticipation, the preparation, and all of those things. So please go check out that video on my Thoughts from the Hypnosis Office about remembering what it's like to be a new client, because that was what I went through and it was very interesting. So I went to go see my pediatric ophthalmologist, and he and I went back and forth over I showed up with a whole set of paperwork. This I'll share in terms of the preparation. I brought all the pictures, printouts of my retinal scans so that he could see the process that I've gone through. I had a sheet that listed the dates of each eye and everything, all the surgeries, all the symptoms, all the interventions. And it was actually very helpful for me to go through and remember when I noticed the double vision, and to really be able to clarify what my challenge was with this double vision. And so I went, and he and I went back and forth. He did try to use the prisms again, and I had already shared on a prior video that I did have prism lenses in my glasses for about a month or so, maybe 2 months. And they just were miserable. I had a lot of pain, a lot of discomfort, headaches, and eye fatigue, and I'd had my glasses re-lensed. Now, he and I did go back and forth because he is a specialist in this particular issue. And so we did go back and forth with, kind of that, okay, is it single now? Is it double now? Is it left, right, up, down, all of those things. And so he really, really did go through all of the different, elements around that. And I was getting pretty frustrated. And I said, you know what? I'm remembering right now how hard it was for me to live with those prisms. And I said, because now my eyes hurt, and they hurt a lot, and I'm not happy. And so he said, okay, we're going to try something different. And he pulled up on his computer. He said, I would like you to get some Scotch tape. And I'm going to show you. This is not medical advice. I'm going to be very clear about that. If you everybody else, this was the advice given to me. And he told me to get this purple Scotch tape. It's gift wrapping tape. And he had me put it on my glasses. There's a line, if you can see, right there, where there's a strip of this clear tape right on my glasses. And I said this on my other video. I said, what in the pseudoscience is this? Because I said, this is weird, seriously. And as he said, it would break up my line of vision and nobody would see it. So let's give it a try. And so I said, okay, fine. I stopped on my way home and I got the tape. And before I used the tape, I Googled the heck out of what in the world it was that he was trying to explain to me, because it honestly, for me, was going to make more sense if I understood why it was supposed to work. And so I really, I went back and forth, and I spent a couple of hours just kind of, doing some other things, but then I would try a different Google search, and I would try a different Google search. And finally, I actually found a man. He has a podcast as well as a YouTube series that is more on holistic health. And so he is, I almost kind of feel like now that I've listened to some of his things, he has a lot of experience in being maybe like an ophthalmological physical therapist, which is something that I've asked for. I've asked for like a physical therapy kind of a thing. And so I think that he worked for many years as a physical therapist, specifically working with eyes and vision. And his name, I'm going to share, his name is Dr. Sam Berne, and he has a podcast, and I think it's called the Clarity Podcast. But either way, if you look for Dr. Sam Berne on YouTube as well as through podcasts, you'll find some information about him. But that day, what I learned was he had some different things that were talking about this what they call occlusion. So it has to do with well, I think I originally learned what he called binasal occlusion, which has to do with almost kind of like using tape to give the eye something to focus on. And so it is something that they use with strabismus, as well as even some head trauma kinds of things, and where people are needing to relearn how to use their vision. And so I thought, okay, well, that's kind of interesting. At least I was able to get any slice of confirmation that putting Scotch tape on my glasses was going to be a thing. And especially because I knew I was going to need to tell my husband about, or my family, hey, I'm going to do this kind of weird thing. So after kind of learning a little bit about, why we would do this, I did go ahead and put the tape on my lenses, and I kind of went, huh, that kind of helps. That's interesting. That's weird. I know as a professional hypnotist, I see lots of people who leave my office and they say, well, that's interesting. And that was some weird thoughts, but that I feel better. So, so I understand, sometimes we try some different things. And, apparently by having this tape right about here, it kind of blurs out and blocks out my right where my macula has that wrinkle. And so I have this wrinkle in my macula that creates the wavy vision. And by doing that, it creates just as much of a disruption that then I don't focus as heavily on that problem. And by not focusing as much on that problem, it actually then helps me not be squinting so hard and not be trying so hard to see. And so it actually gives me a lot more full range of vision. I should actually add, I forgot about this part. Before I saw my doctor who wanted me to use the tape, I had been wearing an eye patch at work, and to try to read on my phone, because I just said, you know what, I can't handle this distraction anymore. And so it was actually a big part of how he and I kind of came to that decision. Was I said, I'm shutting this eye off because it's just bothering me so much. And so that was why he wanted to try this. And so I've been doing it for about a week. It is actually very helpful, because it is the weirdest thing. I mean, I used to see, and when I don't have my glasses on, when I see a set of lines, I see, waves and bends and, and all of those things. And so now I do still see some double vision, especially if I'm watching TV, like if there's a big, you turn on Hulu or Netflix and it's got the big logo, and I'll see that a bit double, but then it's better to just, watch a regular show. And it's also better to be able to work with my clients or be able to read my phone and to drive, because it actually opens up my field of vision. So I have better depth perception already. And it's just that, I have this one little spot. Now, it is kind of interesting. I think that this particular tape, I did hold it up next to some of my other Scotch tape, and it is actually, decently translucent. It's just that it creates just a little bit of a spot here, and so I can see through it. It's just blurry, but my vision is kind of blurry anyway, so it's just more, it's more obviously blurry, but it helps, because then instead of that central vision, that's what I was trying to figure out before, the central vision is really what my issue is, but I can see out of my peripheral better. And so he really wanted to be sure that I was maximizing my peripheral vision and be able to get as much light in and all of those things. So that's my weird update about my new thing. Now, as I was preparing, I was thinking I was going to have another surgery. In fact, I thought I was going to have 2 more surgeries. First to deal with the strabismus, and the second to deal with the macular wrinkle. Right now, I guess we're in wait and see mode. At the same time, I've really taken some things to heart about what Dr. Sam Berne has shared about about not working so hard, not putting so much pressure on my eyes. And apparently we hold a lot of stress in our eyes. And so I'm trying to, learn to relax my eyes more when I'm not working, I don't know, or when I'm not watching TV, and I'm just trying to figure that one out. I did add to my little repertoire. I bought blue light glasses, and so I'm going to add those. Apparently, there's a whole thing about after you have cataracts, you are less protected after the cataract surgery, less protected from blue light. And I did not know that. And so that could be adding to some of my eye fatigue and some of the dry eye issues, particularly because I am on my phone quite a bit, just entertaining myself because I've struggled to read books and things like that. So today I got some these for reading, and I still have to add my tape to them. And I also ordered some that are actually just clear, no, these are reading glasses. And I ordered some maybe that might help with just the TV. So we'll see. That would be really awesome. I've also gotten some drops that are associated with using digital heavy digital use as well. So see, we are so beyond retinal detachment. We had a year recovering from retinal detachment, but we're learning, now about blue light and all those other good things. So I thank you for joining me today for my adventure. I really appreciate everybody's interest, and I hope that maybe you've learned something. I definitely, like I said, if you're interested in learning more about some of those holistic ideas, I recommend taking a look at Dr. Sam Berne. He had some interesting things that helped me. Some other things that I was kind of like, we'll see, but at this point, I'm open to learning whatever I can. And so I'm happy to kind of share that as a resource, and hopefully it will help somebody else along the way. And so with that, I do thank you for joining me. And again, if you're interested, take a look over at my thoughts from the hypnosis office, and I shared some things about becoming a new client that I thought was kind of interesting to have a little bit of a a more personal update about my actual vision, but also some insights over there that were a little bit more my professional part of my life. And so with that, thank you so much for joining me, and have a wonderful day.